our first international Dharma dialogue. And so I'm so much thankful to Nebraska Zen Center and you. Thank you so much. I'm Nabraj Lama, and I'm a research scholar at Lumbini Buddhist University. So when there is a word Lumbini and the Buddha, I guess everyone knows at least like, oh, that's related with the Buddhism. That's a place where the Sakyamuni Buddha was born. And the university is named under the place.
Learning from us, and of course we're interested in learning from you as well. I got a chance to read some of your book on cognizance.
Correct.
Yeah, it's very interesting on his journey to Mount Kailash. Nabraj Lama gave me a bunch of topics to choose from, and the one that we end up choosing is has to do with climate. And I was a little bit reluctant at first. I thought, oh my goodness, this is a big topic. But okay, I've been inspired by a koan case in the Book of Serenity that I had recently come across that I thought may be helpful in thinking about some of the issues that you brought up here. But I think it's a worthy topic because so many of us don't know what to do. There's extreme views on both ends. On one end, there's not much we can do, may as well forget about it. On the other end, there is excessive anxiety that makes us unable to act. So what do we do? And I think the answer lies somewhere in the middle there. And of course, this is just the beginning of a conversation about this topic. It's not a solution, and it's not meant. I don't see it as a solution. I see it as one small piece of the puzzle that is going to need to involve more and more conversation and thinking across disciplines within, of course, the Buddhist tradition, but also across religious traditions. And it has to be bigger than religion too, because religion is not going to solve our problems either. And in some ways, religion adds to the problem. Sometimes our religious views actually make us not want to act at all for the benefit of others. For example, in the West, we have the idea, for better or for worse, of heaven. And if I do good in this life, if I do the right things, if I believe the right things, then I'll go to heaven. And that often kind of gives us a ticket out of really doing anything here and now. Buddhism is such a broad, it's like Christianity. There's so many different denominations. I don't know if you call it denominations is the right word, but schools of thought within the Buddhist tradition. And so we benefit, I find, when we have conversations like this, and just the questions that might come up or the comments that might come up, the ways of thinking that might come up, we can all benefit from and see how it might affect us in our own life, hopefully beneficial in some way. And the same is true with cultural differences and things. When we can get together and dialogue and have conversations, we get nuances and ways of thinking that we might not get otherwise. So I think this is, I see it as a really precious opportunity anytime we have exchange, cultural or interreligious exchange. Buddhism has a teaching that's similar to that. It's called nirvana. Isn't that what we're celebrating today? The nirvana of the Buddha. The Buddha got a free ticket out of suffering. That's one of the ways that Buddhism portrays nirvana, is that his suffering completely ceased and he doesn't have to be reborn again. And so there's no need to, once you get there, there's no need to do anything. But that's one small view within Buddhism, and it's not the complete whole. But we can also get caught in kind of a secular mindfulness practice of thinking, okay, I've got my own suffering under control, I'm good. That's another, I think, extreme here, because it doesn't address the wider social and environmental issues that are needing to be addressed. So the Buddhism actually can, I think it can offer a lot But again, I say this all very, with lots of reserve, because it's not going to answer the problem. It's, I see it as a koan. Maybe that's a good way to consider global climate change. It's like a koan for humanity. One way that Buddhists can potentially look at this. And if you understand what a koan is in Zen practice, koan practice is very central to Zen. We talk about shikantaza, just sitting, and that's it, but that's not actually it. Because Dogen, if you're in the Soto tradition, we talk about what's called the Genjo koan. That's the first fascicle of Zen Master Dogen's masterpiece, the Dharma Ai, Shobo Genzo. And if you're in the Rinzai Zen tradition, well, they sit with koans, and it's a continual opening of the mind to the bigger questions that can't be answered with just the intellect, with just the brain, with just by thinking. It's like a hen sitting on an egg. The hen doesn't know what the egg is going to produce until it's born. And so there's a mutual interaction there between the koan, between the subject and the object. There's between ourselves and the world. And so in a sense, I see, and Dogen says, what is our koan? Our koan is about this particular moment right now. And this moment, it can create a tremendous amount of anxiety and depression in a lot of people when we start thinking about it. And that's why we just shut down about it. But I've been thinking about this too, that we live in the most amazing time that humans have ever lived in the world, in the history of humanity. And even in the history of the earth, this is the most amazing time in which to be alive. Think about this. The earth has been around for about 4.5 billion years without humans. Humans just came on the scene about maybe 2 million years ago, give or take a few years there. And it's only 65 million years ago, with the demise of the dinosaurs, that mammals, species related to us, were given a chance to go. And the earth has itself been a part of 5 mass extinctions. And we're told right now we're in the middle of a 6th one. We're just at the beginning of a 6th one. Species decline is happening quite rapidly, the same pace as during the time of the dinosaurs. So we're really on the edge of a new, we don't know what's going to happen, right? That's the koan piece. And this can be a time of a lot of potentiality of what we do. And I think a big part of that, a helpful part of this time, is being able to be with both the joy of this experience, the excitement of right now, as well as the grief and the suffering. That's really what our practice is about, is to hold the joys and the sorrows together, right? We don't have to go to one extreme or the other. Those are just extremes. But to hold them both, because that's kind of where we're at. We also have this vow that we say every day in Zen temples: beings are numberless, I vow to free them, or I vow to cross them over to the other shore. Beings are numberless, I vow to cross them over to the other shore, from the shore of suffering to the shore of the end of suffering. That's our vow. And it goes well with the times, I think. It's not a vow that you can accomplish in one lifetime. And part of our issue as humanity is that we're used to solving problems that can be solved within a generation or maybe 2 generations. But we're at a place where we're going is not easily solvable in 1 or 2 generations. We need to have a very much longer vision. And so the Bodhisattva vow is a vow, I think, that is aligned with that deeper, longer vision. The vow to return again and again. So the Buddha's nirvana it's actually the Buddha's nirvana. We have to understand that Buddhism has evolved over time. In early Buddhism, it was all about escaping and getting out of suffering. And so you see teachings about the Buddha's final nirvana, like we read today. But as Buddhism evolved, about 400 or 500 years after the death of the Buddha, there comes this other idea called the Bodhisattva. And the Bodhisattva brings this whole other worldview to Buddhism, and it really enlivens it. The Bodhisattva says, I'm not going to go into nirvana until all beings together attain liberation from suffering. That's a powerful way of thinking, and it's different. It's okay, well, don't put off, and teachers, Zen teachers even say, put off nirvana. Don't go into enlightenment. Help others. That's our practice. Do what we can to serve others. Do what we can to help liberate others, in whatever way that looks like. So there are many, many ways to practice. And I want to embrace all of the possibilities here, that we have more than just one way. There's not one way. Right? Beings are numberless. All of us are going to approach that koan in our own unique circumstances. And you may already be doing things that you don't realize are of benefit. Right? And it's easy to get discouraged too when times turn negatively, culturally, when big things happen, socially. It's easy to get discouraged. But I hope that what we share here will be encouraging, that this is the time to be alive. This is the best time to be alive, right here and right now. So I would like to share about this koan. This is, for some of you, maybe some of you have heard the Book of Serenity. It's a book of 100 Zen koans. And this is koan 69. It's entitled Nanchuan's Cows. Nanchuan's Cows. Here's the introduction. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but listen to how the other than human is being referred to here. Becoming a Buddha and being an ancestor is disliked for wearing a defiled name. It seems kind of opposite. I thought we were trying to do something good. Wearing horns and fur is pushed to the superior position. This is why the true light doesn't shine. Great wisdom appears foolish. There is yet another who is deaf for convenience and pretends not to be skillful. Do we know who he is? Here's the case. Nanchuan said to the assembly, the Buddhas of past, present, and future do not know it is. Cats and cows know it is. One possible interpretation for this koan is that you can see how it elevates the non-human world. There's something important to be gathered by, or to take in, that humans are not capable of, that animals are. What is that? What is it that animals are capable of that we're not capable of, or have a difficult time with? There's several different stories in here about Nanchuan in relationship to animals. And the one that I want to offer two. The first one, Nanshuan asked a lecturer, what is the ultimate principle of the Nirvana scripture? Again, very appropriate for today. What's the ultimate principle of the Nirvana scripture? The lecturer said, thusness is the ultimate principle. Thusness. What is thusness? Somebody say, what is thusness?
Right here.
Right here, right here. Yeah, I like to think of it as like it's the soup that we're in. It's the air we're breathing. It's the energy that's also pervaded with Buddha nature. Namchuan said, as soon as you call it thus, it has already changed. Okay. Monks in the present time should act in the midst of, here it is, different kinds. This is in contrast to humankind. The translation uses the word different kinds as opposed to non-human. So it's a contrast to humankind. All right, let me read that again. Monks in the present time should act in the midst of different kinds, not just human kinds. We should act in the midst of different kinds. Zhao Zhou in front of the monks hall asked, I don't ask about different, what about kind? Nanshuan pushed on the ground with both hands. In other words, he got on all fours. Right? He got on all fours. There's something there. So that's the first story. And the second story, I heard a while ago from my teacher, a couple of decades ago, she brought this one up. When Nanshan was about to pass away, the head monk asked, after you die, where will you go? This is a wonderful question, isn't it? And it's a question that when I teach world religions, that's the main question that students want to know. What do you believe happens after you die? Do you go to heaven? Do you go nowhere? What happens? I mean, you could say that I'm going to go to the Pure Land, I'm going to go to Nirvana, but what does he say? He says, down the mountain to be a water buffalo. Wow. And you got to keep in mind the water buffalo is really a sacred creature in Buddhist tradition. We find all manner of stories about water buffalo because they are the epitome of Buddha nature. They are strong, they're powerful creatures, they cultivate the land, which is also symbolic about cultivating our own heart mind, compassion, the wisdom, the water buffalo, right? And it can, and the mind of the water buffalo can be tamed, just like our mind. So we can learn from the water buffalo how to be. But he's elevating the water buffalo even above humans. Down the mountain to be a water buffalo. The monk said, can I follow you? Nanshuan said, if you follow me, you must come with a blade of grass in your mouth. So what do we make of that? This idea of putting a blade of grass. And when I read this recently, I thought, well, you've got to humble yourself to doing what that animal does. And when my teacher shared her insight, she said, that's how Nanshuan will recognize the monk, because it has a blade of grass in its mouth. There's more about these kinds of stories, but I think my point is that as humanity moves into this great new age that is quickly approaching us, we would benefit from taking a less anthropocentric view of the world. Anthropocentric meaning humans at the center of the world, that the world revolves around us, and taking a more what's called a anthropocosmic view, where humans center around the universe, that we see ourselves in a greater context as one part of a larger whole. So I think that insight for us is certainly not unique to what it's something that others of my teachers have shared with me. So I'm not saying something that is unique to me, but it's just the movement from anthropocentric view, which is what we live in right now, where humans are the center, to a anthropocosmic view, where we're in relationship with the cosmos in a way that doesn't center solely around humans, but also humans play a pivotal role. And our role, as far as Zen Buddhism goes, is to carry out our Buddha nature, to generate that goodwill, to have that compassion for others, right? Have that kindness wherever we go, and see what we can do. We don't have to change anything. We just, we don't necessarily have to change anything but our view. And out of that right view, other things do change. So that's what I wanted to share, and I want to invite you to do what you want to do.
Okay. Thank you so much for the talk, and I do have lots of questions. So when I was hearing that it is the best time to be alive, I was just thinking, we sometimes need to think problem from the opportunity point of view. Right? So when there is so much a problem, we have to see like, oh, that's the opportunity that you can make it, right? So are you telling from that point of view, or which view, that this is the best time for us to be alive?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think about whether it's from an opportunity point of view or not. But in Zazen, you can only hold so much grief until it flips around. And something flipped around, and I realized, wow, this is a great time to be alive. This is the best time to be alive. And it's not, whether it is or not objectively, I don't know. But to think that way is very beneficial for our overall health. I heard the Dalai Lama said something recently that, something like, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he said something like, it's better to live, if you have a choice, it's better to live optimistically.
Right.
Because it's just, you feel better. Right? And I
read that.
Well, oh, did you read that?
He said, we might, something like, we might as well be optimistic because it feels better.
It feels better, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think in that kind of spirit, but I genuinely feel that. When I sit, and we've been sitting this weekend, and it's kind of like looking down, I've never been to the Grand Canyon, but I've seen images, and you look down, and I can imagine the depth of that, and that feeling of the depth of the Grand Canyon and the greatness of it. And it just strikes me that this moment right now, with all of the destruction happening, it's a moment of awe too. I'm not saying it should happen, or we should do something about it, or we shouldn't do something. I'm just saying that, wow, this is an amazing time to be alive. None of my ancestors knew anything about this. Even the Buddha didn't know about the extinction of species. He was talking about the extinction of himself.
Right.
So it's just a mind-boggling. We've learned so much about ourselves and human history, and that we come from a long lineage that stretches back, that's connected to mammals. And we see that with primates, right? I mean, you look at a primate face and you can't help but see a human face there. You can't help but see the relations. And on a genetic level, we're 98% related to chimps. That's not a horrible thing. That's a wonder, right? I look at that and I'm like, wow, what's been going on the past million years? And we've been kind of circling around an ideology that says we've come from, not exactly come from animals, but if you look even in the Western tradition, the religious tradition, if we look closely enough at the book of Genesis, I think there is some power there too, though, because it says that human beings came from the earth, the dirt, right? We came from dirt. Would you rather come from dirt or come from a monkey? Choose, which one do you want?
Well, monkeys came from her too. That's what Suragama Sutra said.
What's that?
That's what the Suragama Sutra said.
What does it say?
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, what does it say? I didn't hear you.
Oh, the whole world was created by ignorance. And then it
Oh.
started with earth, sky, air, water, and fire. Then different beings, then karma.
Interesting. So there's another way to look at it. See,
All right.
as soon as we start to open this
All right.
up, we say, okay, it opens up to different perspectives,
All right.
right?
All right. Thank
So-
you so much. It's so nice to be with such a positive attitude, positive openness, right? So like sometimes we're so much surrounded with let's say, little negative thought, we
Right.
find everywhere problem. Everywhere problem. We go outside, it's a cold, that's a problem. Everywhere problem, right? But that's the beauty of having such a great teacher and such a great place and to have a really positive life.
Right. Well, and the other thing I want to say is we don't have to have one view that's the right view. I think it's important is to have that multiplicity of views.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways we can go.
People just save up money and research or whatever for the sixth generation, what will be the future of my son, okay, I have to preserve that money. What will be the future of, again, the grandson, they need to think and the life becomes so miserable. And for the animals, let's think about the bird, let's think about the cat, let's think about the dog. They're so happy. They are living a life so alive, right?
Mm. So,
what is your kind of view on, while you are telling animals are capable of, but not humans?
What's my view on
Yeah,
that?
exactly.
Well, I think what you just said was the answer to that. Like a bird, an eagle has far superior vision to humans. The dog can hear sounds that we can't hear. The interesting thing about humans is that we have the ability to self-reflect, and that's a profound kind of thing that differentiates us, I think, from animals. That we have this ability to become conscious of our death, and you don't see that in animals so much. So that's one thing that's different, and it carries with it some responsibility. How do we deal with that? But getting to your question about what do they, how does that play out? There's so many references to nature in the sutras, and even the Buddha himself, when he was enlightened, it was because he was sitting under a bodhi, what's called the bodhi tree. Right? If the bodhi tree wasn't there, the Buddha wouldn't have been enlightened. If the star that he saw up in the sky wasn't there, he wouldn't have been enlightened. So all of those causes and conditions came together. He practiced, he lived in the forests. And we live in houses, right? So we've in the modern era, we've become removed from that kind of lifestyle. And the time of the Buddha, even if you weren't a monastic, you were very close, much closer to the natural world than we are today. And depending on what country you go to in modern times too, if you go to a third world country, you're not going to have the same amenities that you have here. And for modern folks, a lot of us would say, well, we have to help people out and become more modern and get indoor plumbing or that kind of thing. But there's also something lost with modernization, and that is that connection with the natural world. That you go out there and you're walking on the grass and you see the soil, and you breathe the air that's right there. you walk and you see the creek. You know, there's something about that. In my own experience, I shared with the Sangha maybe a year ago or so, I was sharing a talk about, I used to be a competitive swimmer. And my favorite stroke was breaststroke. This one, you go like this. And I was reflecting on why was that my favorite stroke? I don't know. When I was growing up, I enjoyed it because I started to win. You know, that was one thing. And I enjoyed how my body felt moving through the water, my hands and my legs, and the kick is called frog kick. And when I was growing up, I had fire belly toads that I got at the pet store. And I just love amphibians. I love reptiles, I love frogs, I love salamanders. And I had these growing up from about 3rd grade to 6th grade, somewhere in there. And they're beautiful toads that are interesting because they like water, which is unusual for toads. But they have these red and black splotches on their belly. And they're actually poisonous if you don't treat them right. They can secrete poison. But I remembered watching them swim in the aquarium and the way that their legs would kick, you know. And I think those were actually my first swim instructors, those frogs. Right?
Exactly, right.
They taught me how to be streamlined. I could see the way that their legs were, their arms were, and they could get where they needed to go very quickly. And of course I learned from my coaches as well, but that was a physical example of an animal teaching me. And I think that was one of the that's definitely a highlight of my youth.
It's like you being a Buddhist teacher, practitioner, how do you see, can people even think we are just a tiny part of this universe, we are not the center? Is it possible to integrate and to live with the nature?
Well, that's what Zen practice is about. The first thing we usually learn in the Zen Center is getting right in touch with our own breath. That's nature right there. But it doesn't end there. It's also about how we take care of the space that we're in. So first we take care of ourselves, we get ourselves centered, we calm our minds down, and then we can see, oh yeah, I am a part of everything. But then we extend that to our activities. So we encourage people here, if you use a dish or a bowl, then you wash it. You know, use your hands to wash it. We have a beautiful garden out front or out back, and we need to take care of it. And so people come and they weed the garden, we put down mulch, we water the plants, we take care of things. So the more that we can see that connection, first of all, just on a thought level, on a mental level, that we're a part of everything, that's where meditation comes in. That we don't have that anxiety of me being separate from others. Everybody's a part of my big family. You know, but we go back and forth between delusion and enlightenment. That's kind of where we are. But we reinforce our practice through work practice, where, if the floor is dirty, let's get a broom and sweep it, and get our hands dirty. The lotus only grows in the mud, and we need to get our fingers dirty. It's okay to get the hands in the earth. And I encourage people, if you have land, then grow things and be an active part of it. Grow vegetables. In the city of Ames, where I live in Iowa, I've been working with the city is doing a pollinator program to get the prairie to grow more places, because there's serious issues around food shortage that are impending because we don't have the pollinators available like they were for various reasons. But we have so much potential. If anybody who has grass, even if you plant a pollinator garden the size of this zafu, right? The size of this zafu. Just that, plant something that you want to see grow that's native, that will attract the bees and the things that we need. And that can be of benefit. So there's so many potential things that we could do if we expand our idea of who we are. Again, it goes back to that idea of that, are we the center of the world, or are we part of the larger matrix? So Zen practice points all to that. When we eat, right, we had breakfast this morning with oryoki bowls, and not a thing is wasted. We don't waste any food. Whatever food we take, we consume everything that we put in our bowls. And part of that that's the way to honor the food. We don't throw it away. But in our society, it's very easy to just throw things away, including food, which, and at the same time, there's people hungry. So, but if we learn how to eat, it has ramifications for our larger life. If we take only what we need in the moment, then we'll realize, I don't need to get all that food that ends up just getting thrown away anyways. And we'll think about how much food we actually purchase and what quality of food we get. And maybe we'll get the food from the backyard, not just from the grocery store. Or we'll go to the farmer's market and get the local food that doesn't use as much gas to transport. So things like that, your mind starts to think in those ways really naturally, I think. And it's to our benefit. I think again, we're at a time where there's tremendous potential and goodwill, and that we need to work together with all kinds of people and invite that diversity. This is just one perspective. I don't want to say this is the only way to think about this, but it's the way that I've embraced. But I think there's many ways out there. Technology also plays a role as well, a certain degree. But anyways, here we are.
We just would like to open a floor for the kind of a question, and most of the questions would lead to him. It's bigger right now. But I being a part of Nepal and being a research scholar, and if there is anything that I could share with my experience, I would be happy. But being today's he's the president.
No. I would say the reverse. You guys got me every month, and we have this precious opportunity for Nabraj, so I would really encourage you to ask him. Yeah.
So Nepal,
Is that
that's
to him or
no for you. Yeah, sorry, I don't know much
Okay.
about Nepal.
Okay,
Is that
alright.
in India then?
Yes, very good question.
Okay.
But that's not an answer, Question
Right.
is good. And everyone knows Buddha, but people don't know where Buddha was born. All right. People, they know the tallest, highest mountain in the world, but people don't know where that mountain is. All right. So to your question, India is a neighbor to us.
A neighbor. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So India is on the southern border, China on the north.
I just had a thought. You mentioned kind of the Western privilege and all the things that we have commodities, and I agree completely. But I would just offer kind of the opposite. I think some of those things makes it a lot harder to change kind of our worldview of being the center of the universe, and it revolves around us, kind of with the teaching. And in some ways, living that simpler life makes you feel that sense of interbeing and that interconnectedness in a way that's, I would say, is probably easier than us disconnecting from all the comforts of our life. And just another thought while we were talking about nature and animals and things, I just watched this show, and it was talking about trees and the mycelar network of fungal connections between all the roots. And they have this extreme communication network where when one is cut down, the other ones all support and send resources and nutrients to it. And kind of maybe our understanding or definition of what evolved or advanced states of being is flawed from the beginning, because we just don't know enough about how everything else is interconnected in that interbeing state between things. So those are just my thoughts.
It's always good to be a tourist and go and take a picture and say, wow, what a natural life. But people should know how difficult it is. Like a young 5 years girl, they need to go 1 hour down to get to fetch water, 1 gallon of water, and come back 2 hours. People might say, oh, what a natural life, what a physical exercise and all those things. But see the hardship, but you cannot survive there for 1 week, right? So sometimes when we see from the far distance, It's always said the other side of hill is always green. So it looks, wow, that's a really green one. But when we reach there, it's not that green. We can see this side green. So I think being a human, what we can offer from that part of the world and what you can offer from this part of the world, that should interact to make all the humanity, all the people that we share together, so that there will be like the earth will be beautiful, and our timing will be the beautiful time. And I wish and I hope, like, you know, we all could say that the moment, the time we all live in this earth was the most precious and the beautiful one.
I've often thought if I were king of this country, or queen, then I would require every teenager here to travel to a third world country. Just simply because, you know, there's a certain, there's a different kind of suffering that happens in, you know, people who don't see what they have, you know, who don't appreciate what they have and don't appreciate what other people don't have as well. And, you know, for my worldview, traveling to third world countries is just, you know, it's like you said, it's just so eye-opening.
That's just a wish. Let's just desire, okay, I will do this. I'm working on my third book and I'm talking about the 4D: desire, decision, determination, and the discipline. So if you have a desire, you are already the king and queen of yourself, you know. If you can even take 10 people to the developing world, they can take a further 10, and that goes on a proportional growth, right? So I don't think we need to be a king or the queen. You will be always the king and the queen, you know? And that will help all the humanity.
Maybe that's a good place to end for our formal discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to you. Thank you so much for all the Sangha members, and thank you so much for Nebraska Zen Center.